All right, this again is a continuation of the midterm review. This video covers questions 16 through 20. So question 16 says, find the equation of the horizontal line that passes through negative 3, 6. So this problem is similar to question 15, but the difference is it seems like you don't have enough information. But again, remember, the two things you need to know in order to write the equation is a point, which you are given a point, and you need the slope. Well, it doesn't outright tell you the slope, nor do you have 2 points where you can calculate the slope, but what it does tell you is that you're trying to write the equation of a horizontal line. And by definition, the slope of a horizontal line is always 0. So you really do know the slope because they tell you you're trying to write the equation of a horizontal line. So again, we're going to substitute, and I just do it the same way as I did question 15. I know a point and the slope, so I'm going to substitute into the point slope formula, which is y equals m times x minus x1 plus y1. So if I substitute into that equation or that formula, I have y equals 0 times x minus, the minus 3 makes plus 3 plus 6. Then if I do the distribution of 0, I have y equals 0x plus 0 plus 6. Now, you know mathematically we don't normally write the 0, so it simplifies to y equals 6. Now, there is actually a formula specifically for a horizontal line, and it is simply y equals b. And in this case, the b, it still represents the y-intercept, but it's actually the y value of the given point. So if you want to learn another formula, or I think it may be on the midterm, then you could look at it that way. But I just continue doing it using point slope. Question 17 asks you to find the distance between 2 points. And again, the formula is at the beginning of the midterm, but let me write it here. It is d for distance equals the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. And so I have the 2 points that are given to me. And again, I like to label them so I don't get confused. The first point, 12, 5, would be x1, y1. The point negative 2, 11, would be y2, x2, y2. So then I'm going to substitute into the equation, and I would have negative 2 minus 12 squared added to 11 minus 5 squared. Okay, so doing the math, negative 2 minus 12 is negative 14 squared, plus 11 minus 5 is 6 squared, which then gives me negative 14 squared. Negative 14 times negative 14 is 196, plus 6 squared is 36, which comes out to be the square root of 232. If I need to simplify that, we always simplify a radical. If I go off over here to the side to 232, I know 232 is 2 times 116, and 116 is 2 times 59, or 58, and 58 is 2 times 29. So I have the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 29. So I have a square root, so I need to look for a set of 2. So I do have one set of 2. So it comes out to be 2 on the square root of 2 times 29, which is 58. Or in decimal form, it's approximately 15.23. Number 18 asks you to give the center and the radius of the circle. So you need to remember the equation for a circle. In general, it is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where h comma k is the ordered pair that corresponds to the center and r is the radius. So if I consider the radius first here, and it really doesn't matter which piece I do first, but if I consider the radius, I have r squared is 25. And if I kind of solve that, or I can logically think it through, but if I take the square root of both sides, I'm going to have r equals 5. Excuse me. So the radius of my circle is 5. Now, we have to be a little careful. Be careful with your signs when you go to identify the center, because it should be a minus, but I have a plus. But remember, that's rewritten as x minus a negative 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared. So my center is actually negative 4, positive 3. Number 5 says, write the equation of the line through the points 2, 3, and 6, 4. And I happen to know that on the test, they want you to write it in slope-intercept form. So again, as we think about writing the equation of a line, remember you have to know a point, which we do, and you have to know the slope. We don't know the slope, but we do have enough information that we can calculate the slope using the slope formula, which is at the beginning of the midterm. So I'm going to use the 2 given points, and again, I'm going to label them. 2, 3 is going to be my x1, y1, and 6, 4 is going to be my x2, y2. So I have 4 minus 3 over 6 minus 2, which gives me 1 over 4, or 1/4. So now I have the slope and a point, and I'm going to substitute into the point slope formula, which is y equals m times x minus x1 plus y1. So y equals 1/4 times x minus 2 plus 3 when you make the substitution. And because they want it in slope-intercept form, you got to deal with that lovely fraction. I suppose you could convert it to a decimal, but if we do it as a fraction, we have y equals 1/4 x minus 2/4 plus 3. And then I need to combine the like terms, so I need to combine 3 and minus 2/4. Now 2/4 will simplify to 1/2. So I really have basically 3 minus 1/2. So I have y equals 1/4 x plus 3 minus 1/2 would be 2.5, or 5/2. Now again, if they want it written in decimal form, we would have y equals 0.25, that's 1/4, plus 2.5. So again, be careful. Pay attention to the instructions and how they want you, to enter the information. And finally, number 20 is given that the two endpoints of a circle are 3, 5, and 1, -3 are the endpoints of the diameter of a circle. Write the equation of the circle. Now, this problem I remember seeing earlier in one of your lessons, and I think it was also on something similar to it was on test 1. So basically, remember when you're writing the equation of a circle, you need the center and you need the radius, neither of which are given. But I do have the endpoints of the diameter. And remember, the endpoints of the diameter for a circle are on either side, I'm a little off there, of the circle. Okay, so it goes all the way across. So I can find the center if I determine the midpoint of the line that connects those 2 points. And I can find the radius if I figure the distance from the center to one of the points. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so to find the center, I'm going to calculate the midpoint. So I would have 3 plus 1 divided by 2 and 5 plus -3 divided by 2, which gives me 4 over 2 and 2 over 2. So my center is 2, 1. And then I'm going to use this point and one of the other points, and I think I'm going to use 3, 5. I don't like that negative in there. And I'm going to calculate the distance from the center to that point using the distance formula. So I have x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So I have, let's see, -1, oops, sorry about that, -1 squared see I have -1 squared plus -4 squared, which gives me the square root of 1 plus 16 or the square root of 17. So now I have the radius. So I take the radius and the center, which I calculated, and I plug into my circle formula so that ultimately I have x minus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals the square root of 17 squared. So that when it's simplified, we have x minus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals plain old 17, which looks a little strange, but that is the answer.